Oh no, like public transport ones.
Because you don't have your Opal?
Yeah, well, I caught the light rail for the first time in 1 year yesterday, and I forgot to touch on at the station because, like, you know, in Melbourne, like, you touch on in the tram.
It's light rail. Not light rail, it's the thing, yeah.
Yeah, so jump on, don't touch on, and I look around for a machine, and I'm like, oh, fuck. And then, ticket inspector's right there. And I was just like, oh,
Oi,
God.
why didn't you run?
Oh, I should have. It was we were on an excursion for uni, so I was with my classmates.
Why didn't you run?
But
oh, by the way, we're on now. Like, pretty much, that was a great segue here through. Like, I love that. I'll clap just to be real, but yeah.
Why did I run? I don't know. It was so unexpected that I didn't even.
I was being serious. I love it. We're in a podcast, you full on address the question. You're like, oh, why didn't I run? I'm like, damn, man.
The lady hated me. I didn't do anything. I was like, I genuinely forgot. She's like, oh, no, you didn't.
Was she white?
Yeah. And she looked at my history that shows that I caught the tram 1 year ago. Yeah. And she's like, oh, well, you've caught the tram before, so obviously you know how to
Suck
use
a
it.
dick!
It's been a
Suck
fucking
a dick,
year.
bitch!
1 year.
That was what?
Yeah.
What?
What? I know, crazy.
That's fucked up.
I know. But she gave me a warning.
Oh, but better. Yeah, fair enough. Like, no, because I just don't like that. I don't like the fact that this lady went, oh, you caught the light rail before.
Yeah.
Excuse me, ma'am. Miss. It says 1 year, yeah? That means for a whole year, I'm speaking a different language.
Yeah.
I don't even... Listen, I'm an immigrant. I've immigrated to Sydney. All right?
Oh, yeah, almost.
We're in a city, all right? Be a bit more multicultural about this shit.
And not only that when I touched on 1 year ago,
Yeah.
would have been the only time I've ever touched on.
And that was pretty much like... What?
Yes.
Because I was going to say, yeah, like about 1 year ago or 2 years ago, 1 year ago you touched on light rail or train?
Light rail.
Light rail. That was when light rail first started.
Yeah.
And how often do people even use light rail?
Exactly.
It's fucked. Hey, dude, no. Because this is a very good segue because we're going to be talking about your van, which is one of the most interesting things about you. But before we get into that, on the same correlation of transport, how fucked is the light rail?
I love it, actually.
Why? Tell me why.
Just because I'm doing my Masters of Architecture, and
I was going to ask you that.
When we just public transport, it's amazing, and light rail is great. Like,
okay. Kieran, brother, I'm from Vietnam, bro.
Yeah,
it's a busy place, man. I love public transport. I froth over. Like, listen, you got people who I've grown up with. They drive. And then the guy got suspended. He won't catch a bus. Won't fucking catch a bus because he just can't fathom it anymore. Back in high school, no dramas.
Yeah.
For me, I love that. I don't mind catching a bus because I'm so once in a while you just need to get on and live.
Yeah.
But like the light rail though.
Is it because the old bus is better than the current?
Yes.
Light rail? Yeah. Well,
you could walk next to the light rail.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing as well. I was never there to see the before. Because as soon as I arrived...
That's right. You're an architect. You're not an engineer. It's their fucking fault. You just draw how to do it. The light rail is slow because the...
But also, generally, even if there is like a bus corridor that's the same as a light rail beforehand, it seems that having a light rail kind of stimulates, good development in that area. And, yeah, it's a good thing. Because it's more visible as well. It makes people think, oh, public transport there, I can take it, and I can get off and walk around this area.
Okay, look, my objection is only this. My objection, and I agree. I agree because I've grown up with the whole you stand for the bus and the bus doesn't come. You look in the app. Yeah. The rail's on the floor. You know it's gonna come. I get that, but I just don't think they did it well. The light rail. However, that thing that you said about like how it looks like it's moving into like a good kind of direction with like transport, visibility, things like that. I would then ask a question that I think you understand from an architecture standpoint. Is it then okay that these light rail isn't that great, but it's like almost like a placeholder for something, like for the city to develop around this thing to become something better?
Yeah, exactly.
I would hope so. And is that fact? Like we know that's a thing. Like
yeah, and it will get better. And if I'm not mistaken, they're running half-size trains or light rail cars, whatever you call them. So, so there's room to increase, and the frequency of service was increased. Like now, it's actually a lot better than it was when I was here last year. It's more frequent.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Well, since COVID, I've been working from home most of the time.
Yeah.
So I barely go out the city, so I wouldn't know. Yeah. But when it first opened, the big concern was it seemed like I could just walk, man. But I'm more for it. But that, me being in the side of like, so I've got the disdain for it. Hearing what you had to say, not much to do with the visibility part, but like what thing you said about the city, like how the city's kind of come. I'm like, I can imagine that. I can imagine you put this puzzle piece in, it doesn't really fit right now, but as you kind of upgrade all the other puzzle pieces, everything just kind of goes together.
Yeah. Well, they did it with Newcastle. I'm pretty sure that the current light rail in Newcastle took over the existing train network. Is it because Newcastle's small and they probably... That makes sense to me a little bit. Yeah, and that the whole area where it was kind of like run down and like economically not great.
It's like Canberra, well not like Canberra light rail, but yeah, Canberra has their own light rail thing. Mind you,
that's coming along.
Pardon?
That's coming along, but Canberra's not a great model of public transport.
I just love when you go to Canberra, they have like, their bus stops. Yeah. Canberra, they get that dome thing.
Oh really?
It's not a dome. It's like that cylinder. Sorry, Mr. Architect. I think dome, I meant cylinder. Yeah. That cylinder thing that you can sit in to wait for the bus.
Oh, really?
You haven't seen that?
No.
It's not. It's like a block of concrete.
Really?
Yeah. Well, not all buses, but like I've seen just some like that, which I haven't seen in Sydney. I'm like, oh damn, that's cool. It's like there's a bus stop and there's a cylinder concrete slab thing, and then you kind of just sit in it.
Oh, I want to see that now, because that was probably part of the original plan for Canberra, I guess.
It looked old, yeah. Like it would have to be. We'll go to Canberra next time. We'll have a look. Rock up on bus stops.
Sounds good.
Oh, okay, cool. The other thing that I would then point out is, though, your light rail system, your tram system in Melbourne, much better.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
But see, this is what happens when you don't understand things. You see the light rail come out and you think, oh, it's crap. Are you telling me then the goal with our light rail right now is it should be as efficient as the one in Melbourne?
Ooh, I'm not that experienced with the Melbourne tram network, to be fair.
You don't have to be that experienced. You just have to know it works. You can catch you can be outside of the city and catch a bus to a tram and tram straight in, or even a tram.
Yeah.
15 minutes.
I'd say the light rail in Sydney is better than the Melbourne network.
Get the fuck out!
No, because obviously Melbourne has a more expensive network.
Go back to where you came from. No, I'll go there.
But what's the difference between the Melbourne tram system and a bus, except that it's limited to a track? It's still part of a road.
Of the traffic of the...
It's still
subjected to the traffic.
All that stuff. Catching a tram in Melbourne during peak hours not
the same
of
an issue? Okay.
Because it's even worse than getting a car.
Maybe I'm just cut because like the light rail doesn't reach Bankstown, so I can't just hop on the light rail.
Yeah.
It reaches the inner west, so you can like from all those like little suburbs outside the city, you've got like a pretty like nice. I call it a straight line because the rail. Just hop on and just out there, right? Yeah. That's messed up.
It'll happen eventually.
Do you think so?
Actually, probably not.
Yeah.
Because it's for a light rail.
Because you're poor.
Like you wouldn't get a light rail a long distance.
But yeah, we wouldn't. Yeah. We wouldn't be able to. Like that's just. I wish that was the case, but.
Yeah.
Well, but then it also comes down to this was mentioned about your van, but that's a bit of like. It's also come down to though, isn't it because like Melbourne's drawn better?
Not better. Melbourne's drawn. So
Melbourne's not drawn better. It's just drawn. Sydney's scribbled.
That's the thing. Like when Australia.
Here you go,
invaded,
architecture man.
Like we landed. Someone landed in
your
Sydney.
People.
Yeah.
Your uncles and cousins.
The original boat people. And like city planning wasn't really established at that point in time. So they just followed the contours of the land to establish their colony. But then when they went to Melbourne, city planning was established and they applied that. And
that makes so much sense because everyone else was telling me like, oh, Sydney, someone just hopped on acid and like just drew it up. But I guess that makes like that knowing that fact, I'm like, I can accept this.
Yeah.
Like the contours are there. Like work with what you got.
Yeah, like you'll probably find that in Sydney, many of the existing road networks probably followed like streams or like places where water flowed because they were like naturally clear.
Colonies and stuff that you set up.
Like there will be some correlation there. And then after that, things were just established based on this necessity. So that's why it's, kind of doesn't really make sense. But I don't think one is better than the other. Melbourne's kind of boring.
Melbourne people are nicer than Sydney people. How is Melbourne boring? You don't have lockout hours, bro. What do you mean?
Oh, no, just speaking of the planning. Like just...
Oh, the planning. Boring? You mean like it works and it's convenient?
Does it though?
It's all blocked and everything's that way. It's either...
Yeah, but I don't know, like movement isn't like... I don't know.
I love this. You
Life
give
and
me this new
movement
perspective.
isn't rectilinear, It's
Say that
a
again.
flow.
What movement isn't what?
Like human life
Movement
and
isn't
movement.
meant to be...
Yeah.
Well, doesn't necessarily have to... Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Like that's not necessarily the best concept. So...
What is the best? Is the best most convenient? Isn't that what best is?
Is it the most convenient?
Yeah, I don't know. You'd have to give me a counterpoint to what best is.
I don't
Because
know.
mind you,
Yeah.
and this is also accepting that neither... Well, we can accept the same that probably neither Sydney or Melbourne is better than the other.
No, just different. But
Different.
Melbourne is just...
Do you think maybe because you grew up in it, you're bored?
Nah. Well, like, I'm still kind of like an outsider from Melbourne as well. So, no, I think with Sydney, it's so wrapped up by its geography and, you're forced... They have been forced to contain their developments within certain areas because of the landscape. And what happens is this crazy kind of plan, but also everything's a lot more concentrated and close. Whereas in Melbourne, there's no limit. There's the Dandenong Ranges, where I grew up in the southeast suburbs, but between Melbourne and the Dandenong Ranges is about 40 kilometres of flat land.
Oh.
And that's where the edge of Melbourne goes to because of that. It's ridiculous.
Speaking of which, when you said... It's a concept that I always touch on in just my life in general, being an outsider. Being an outsider in Melbourne, do you mean that because you lived pretty much on the outskirts of Melbourne?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I lived at the end... Like, there's the end of the train line.
Yep.
And then, 15 minutes by car was where I grew up. So...
Fuck.
Yeah.
Because literally, I'm just on tapping that as an experience. You're literally... Okay, because, when you live on... Let's say if you drew a geographic thing, you lived on the outskirts of it. That's a fact geographically. But then it depends on, your experiences of how you go about how much you feel like you belong.
Yeah.
And I feel like in this sense, it's like you live on the outskirts of Melbourne and then you feel like that outsider because all your experiences from going into the city and coming back out. Just similar to mine here when I went to uni, I made friends who lived in all different places. Yeah. Right? We hang out and when we finish... I've got to hop on a train to head back southwest on my own sometimes. If I haven't met friends in the same... Would you go through some things like that as well? Being on that outside?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird because you're like half in, half out. You can still technically access the city. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a pain. Yeah. You don't really want to be doing that regularly.
There's more mitigating factors to making you feel like you belong with everyone else. Oh, wow. I think that's a very huge theme for across the board of your life too.